Hey everyone, Tots, Bots, and Thoughts. We're back for another installment of the weekly catch-up podcast. Soon we'll rebrand as the Once in a Blue Moon Surprise We're Back podcast. It's Saturday, March 27, 2021, and this is episode number 64 of our humble little show. I'm your host, Carson Gibbons, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, the one and only Mr. B-Rad Colvin.
That'd be me.
What's happening, B-Rad?
What's not happening?
Hey man, happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
I'm glad that we could come together in fellowship today.
Absolutely.
And
We
share
are
it.
here. A little potluck.
We'll have haystacks right after this.
Mm.
It's Passover too, so
Yeah.
it's like a big Sabbath for everybody.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Okay. We are sitting here in Dallas, Texas, coming to you live from Victory Park. We're watching the WGC Dell Championships as we record this podcast, and I appreciate you coming over for a weekend sesh, buddy.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It's been like 34 days.
Has it? Who's counting? You know?
So several of the fans,
some people are counting, yeah.
I've gotten some, again, still getting that unnecessary outreach.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like everything that we did last podcast where we were like, we're going to take a few weeks off. Maybe they didn't hear that part or they just didn't care.
I thought I heard 2 or 3 weeks off, and it's been like a month plus.
No, not even.
It was February 24, and it's
Ooh.
March 27 now.
Oh, well, time flies.
Sorry, Tots,
Don't
but Brad was out living a lot of life that I'm anxious to
Yeah.
dive into and hear more about.
Absolutely.
I haven't gotten any updates on Vegas, on the road trip, on...
Been holding it all in for the show.
Were you ready to get it all out?
What happens in Vegas winds up on the podcast, apparently. Yeah, man. Let's get it.
It's the weekly catch up with Carson and Brad. Here to talk about the week we done had. It could be sports, religion, politics, we keeping the tabs. You would think they work for Gucci, how they deep in they bag. Get your facts up. On Wednesday we'll be counting the stats up. So turn the volume up till it's maxed up. You know the drill. So tell a friend to relax up and chill. We back up. This is the weekly catch up.
So not only have I not recorded with you since February 24, have I seen you since February 24?
No, we've chatted here and there, but we have not seen each other in the flesh since then.
Oh, wow, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal because I've seen you most weeks for 60 some odd weeks. Well,
Yeah.
I guess the first 50 or so. And then
Right.
we've been more sporadic. So it's really good to see your face again.
Yeah. It's
You just
nice
got a
to
fresh
see you.
fade or something.
I
Huh?
did. Thanks for noticing. I was looking like this caveman, and the mask restrictions are not as crazy as they used to. So the barber that I used allowed me to take off my mask so they could actually clean up the front of my beard, and now I look more put together, which is nice.
You look very GQ. You look like a
Thanks.
classic man. That beard is like very... I'm a classic man.
Hey, all right. Last week I felt like I looked like an ogre, so maybe it's a good thing we didn't record last week.
Well, you went out west though. You've been...
Yeah, I knew that we'd be going. I was like, my beard was getting kind of gnarly, but I'm like, we're going to the Grand Canyon. We're going to do some hiking. I was like, I want to look like a mountain man.
Yeah, I don't want to be all barefaced for these
Yeah.
elements.
Right. It's like I got to blend in. If a bear tries to attack me or something, I got to growl back, and needed some fur on my face.
Have you watched The Revenant?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that is the most graphic bear attack scene with Leo Dicaprio ever.
It was tough. Is that where he finally won his Oscar?
Oh, I don't know. That's worth a Google. I'll do that now. I'll be young Jamie for us. But he's probably won several, I thought.
No, the whole meme was that he gave all these great performances but never won anything. I think The Revenant was the first time. Maybe he's won since then.
Okay, Leo Dicaprio Academy Awards.
Not
Best Actor 2016, The Revenant.
Yeah.
Best Actor in 2020 for Once Upon a Time nominee. You're right. He's been a nominee for Once Upon a Time, The Wolf of Wall Street, Blood Diamond, The Aviator, What's Eating Gilbert. This dude does not make a dud.
Right.
You forget that he got his break on Titanic, like the
I
largest
mean, just
grossing film
right
until
out
Avatar.
the gate is just incredibly successful.
He's do you remember Blood Diamond? How powerful that movie was?
Yes, it was great.
I
remember okay, let me be a little bit more honest. I remember feeling things, but I don't remember I don't remember like the entire plot. Like I don't know if he lived or died. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, diamonds. Somebody was crying in Africa.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
moved. I cried myself.
Yeah.
It's basically about conflict,
Diamonds. Yeah.
conflict mining, and the repercussions of. Yeah, I always hate those films where it reminds me of the Ballad of Buster Scruggs or whatever it was.
You've told me about that.
Where it just shows people out in the brutal elements, like with no access to modern medical assistance or any of the amenities.
Yeah.
And I would not have lived long back in the day. Like
I tell you, I camped one night at the Grand Canyon, and
did you really?
Yeah.
Did you go to the basin?
Not the basin. A lot of it was closed, so we were able to access the southern rim, and we camped.
It's my favorite rim.
Yeah, and we camped nearby, like at one of the Grand Canyon actual camping spots, and ended up being 12-degree weather at night. It was. You
were in a tent?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this part.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, so we're talking about surviving the elements and everything. I got like a taste of it. Obviously, we still had snacks and water, and there was a bathroom that was in walking distance. So
there was a horse you could crawl into.
Yeah, but we Courtney had the wherewithal to bring a bunch of hand warmers and everything. So she's just a genius, but. We busted a bunch of those out, stuffed them down my pants and my socks. The night got pretty cold. It was it was an experience, but I'm glad we have the story.
Yeah. Okay. We can dive into that whenever you want, or I could continue on Leo for probably the entirety of the podcast.
I feel like we're talking about shifting and how the podcast is going to look moving forward. If we just become a Leo fan club and just like dissect his movies from here on out, I mean, I don't see any downside to it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leo fan club. I have a big man crush on him just because he produces such amazing work.
The Great Gatsby, dude. I watch that every year with my students.
One of my favorite
Skip the sex scenes.
What was I think it was the Ricky Gervais Emmy Awards opening monologue one year, where he was talking about the length of movies that were nominees that particular year, and they were like 2, 3, 4 hours. I think it was actually Once Upon a Time was like 3 hours and something minutes with him and Brad Pitt, and he goes, yeah, I mean, unfortunately for Leo, the movie is so long that he took a date to the premiere, and by the end of the movie, she was too old for him.
Sure, he loved that joke.
Well, before we get into like what we've been up to and your trips and travels and all that, you were talking about podcast format and all that. So let's just tell them.
Sure.
Let's tell them what we've been discussing.
Absolutely.
We're quitting the show.
I mean, eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I've been reading Die with Zero Man, and with all the extenuating circumstances of the year, just go ahead and tell yourself we're quitting. This is one of the last times that we'll ever get together and podcast for the tots.
It's it's one of those things. The podcast, whenever it does end, we'll die, but our friendship won't, and we'll still continue hanging out. And we'll find another way to reach all of our friends and family and let them know what's going on. Maybe you'll just start getting more phone calls from us.
Maybe you can like call me each week, and I'll bounce the call, and you can leave me a voicemail, and then I can like listen to it, and you can like narrate a little show for me.
Yeah, we'll do like a little voicemail tag. It's like you give me a couple seconds, and then yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
Well, let's for anybody that's freaking out, we are going to be quitting the show. We have no idea when per se, but with the thing that we really have prided ourselves on, and I give Brad a whole bunch of this credit, the majority of it due to the commute to the podcast, but just so faithfully done weekly for the longest time. And it led to repeat offenders on, the listening front.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to get reacquainted with us to just dive right back in and re-engage. And you remembered, oh, Carson got attacked by a bird last week. Wonder what happened this week. We didn't have to kind of wade back in. And so we're not going to do the show necessarily on Wednesdays moving forward, or necessarily weekly.
If you listen to the song, it says we'll be counting our stats up every Wednesday. That doesn't mean we have to come out with an episode on a Wednesday. You know what I mean?
I thought it was stacks, like money.
Or stacks, but what
is
stacks
it?
are we counting? It could be stacks.
I think it's stacks.
It probably is. I don't even know our theme song. Of course we're quitting.
Salvation. I don't. I always thought it was stacks, and I'm like, ooh, he thinks we're rich.
Yeah, probably. That makes more sense. But as soon as you said the podcast is ending, I'm already looking forward to next week. You know what I mean?
100%.
I feel like it takes a little bit of pressure off. I don't know how, but it just feels like, hey, this is a thing that we're doing. It does have finality. We don't know what that looks like or when it will be, but we're just going to enjoy the ride while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That feels good to me.
Yeah. It's weird. We've had different expectations for what we would get out of this or put into this at different times. And at the same time, I still remember, I think it was a Saturday that we recorded that first ever.
I stayed the night with you. We woke up and you're just like, hey, why don't we just hit record? And you can tell that's exactly what we did if you go back and listen to episode 1. And we put a little bit more thought into it over the course of the following episodes.
How authentic are we for not having pulled episode 1 off of, the feed? Just being vulnerable out there with no mics. We don't know where this is going. We still don't.
But I love keeping it there because if you listen for the beginning, you can see the rapid growth in us as podcasters. I came in here today, I feel like a professional. I'm not going to lie. And maybe that's just because after every episode, you guys hype us up and say everything that you've been saying. I received a lot of great heartfelt messages after last episode, which really, really meant a lot. I'm glad I could share some of that story with you and you guys could know in greater detail where my head was at and everything. And that's been great. So jokes aside, thank you so much for that. But yeah, came in here this morning feeling like a million, I feel like I have been counting my stacks up.
I felt like amateur hour coming into this one. I'm like, not sure how good I'm going to do, but I don't know, man. There's a level of comfort with it because it's just the two of us.
They listened to us for 3 weeks straight whenever we were just telling poop jokes. They're,
yeah,
y'all are dedicated. Thanks.
Yeah, they know too much about us too.
Yeah,
way too much
at this point.
There are positive aspects to that. I've seen if there's ever a situation where I guess your character could be called into question, I was sometimes concerned about could people locate me through the podcast and then determine a certain thing about my personality or my character or my seriousness or whatever. And, as I've had fears, in recent history about somebody evaluating my character, or could they think whatever, I'm like, actually, this is kind of a great case study that's out there. There's something to be said for having a 2-hour-long conversation with a friend, very consistently, where people can listen and they're like, you can form your own opinion about whether or not I'm crazy or, you
many have.
Yeah. It's confirmed.
Yeah.
No, but there's something to be said for saying that something's going to end, and it's the whole concept of die with zero. And I want to talk more about that later because
absolutely,
I think that it came at a great time for me, and it's going to come at a great time for you. and
Still can't wait to read it.
I'm almost done with it, so I'll finish it and send it right home with you.
Awesome.
But again, shout out to Buffin Abroad for like really diagnosing a situation that he was hearing, and two guys that were very even keel, and everything's always going to be stagnant. We're always going to have our support systems and be able to do whatever we want. And the diminishing $1 today in terms of what you can do in terms of creating memory dividends and life experiences it's gonna turn into $1.20 in 5 years or $1.50 that you'd have to spend to accrue the same level of memory dividend if your health holds up in that amount of time. So I don't know. It is weird how it takes the pressure off when you announce that you're quitting the podcast, and it was always inevitable, but we're thinking that you're going to be looking to grow up and purchase a home, maybe.
Yeah, dude, got some updates on that.
Getting married, got some updates on that.
I mean, it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the updates on the house?
We both sent in our information to see what we could get approved for this week, and it was like glowing.
Yeah.
Our realtor looked at it, and basically they pass this thing out like once in a blue moon, maybe once a year, a couple times a year, that we are going to be listed as guaranteed buyers. Like our credit scores look so great, and our savings and our paychecks and everything look so great that whenever other people are being considered, like we are at the top of the list whenever we put our bid in because of our glowing whatever you want to call it.
Okay, 1%. That's cool.
Bougie out here.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Titans of education and healthcare. Purchasing a home together.
That's what we do.
Dinks. You familiar with that term?
Nope.
Dual income, no kids.
True.
Dinks. Dinks for the win.
I like that.
That's a goal. I know it's not your goal for long.
For a little while.
Yeah. But in prepping for all of that, it's just like you see how life gets in the way of something that's optional. It's not. This doesn't make us money per se. It gives us a lot of other things. It gives me a lot of those memory dividends, and I'm glad that we just bit the bullet and did it when we did it, because that was the only time of our lives that we were going to be able to do that.
Dude, and man, how much life have we lived since episode 1? Like, it's just crazy to see the progression, the highs and lows, and it's actually very cool to have that recorded. That we can always go back, we can show our future kids, like, hey, this is what we were doing in this year. Like, if you really, and whenever my kids are older, maybe I'll show them some of those more difficult episodes and show them what I was going through, and maybe that can be a lesson for them, and I don't know, a form of bonding with them. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I mean, if I could have access to like a candid, like, this is how I was feeling at this moment podcast from either of my parents, especially if they were done at ages that I could then listen to at a comparable age and compare against and kind of understand, like, okay, well, how did my flesh and blood react to X, Y, or Z, or what were they going through during this time period? And that would be super insightful, right?
Right.
Understanding more about your family and where you come from is always interesting. And it's so weird how none of us, do you know who your great grandfather was?
No.
Yeah. It's like, we don't really care past 2 generations. Like, I don't know my great grandfather or who his father was, or, where we come from or anything.
Yeah. I think I've heard maybe a couple stories that have since left my recollection. So,
I will tell you that in reflecting on our last episode, I did get a lot of outreach from some of the tots that said, yo, you know how they have like the explicit warnings on podcasts? Like, you needed to have the tearjerker, grief warning on this one because I think it was Michael that said that he'd almost gotten into a wreck because he was crying like in the first 10 minutes. And
it's somebody on a treadmill running, and they said that was dangerous too. And
really,
which I appreciate, like, you know, because I talked about the last podcast, like somebody saying that they almost cried for me. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, the real ones, y'all either felt away or, you know, you just showed your support, which I appreciate. Good times.
I got feedback that they were surprised that we hadn't kind of edited it more. Like people on my side, I'll tell you, were more surprised at like the genuine editing, which was none of that show.
Yeah.
Because we were kind of sniffling and.
No, I mean, that was the purpose of us recording, was to show people how we were really feeling. Like, I think this podcast would lose its credibility and everything that, you know, we're kind of working for if we're doing that kind of edit. Like, the whole point of this is just to show two people's perspective. And if we're taking out some of that perspective, which includes us being vulnerable and emotional, then what's the point?
Yeah. Well, kudos to you for that.
Thanks, man.
I feel like there's several big kind of trains of thought that we could get into right off the bat.
We're talking money. I eventually want to talk about, I have some more updates as far as stocks go and some other things that I've been looking into, which I want to get into later. Why don't we just go through my trip, and then we'll get an update from you and how work's going and everything, and then we can move forward after that.
Sure.
Cool. So spring break, we left on Friday, Courtney and I, and, you know, we had friends that were flying into Vegas, and we decided to road trip it, and because we had a few stops that we wanted to make. So we stopped in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and did some hiking over there, which was actually very beautiful. Like, once you got into some of those places. Now, I will say there are also sketchy spots in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I hear it's one of the top places, if not the top places, top place where cars get jacked. And I just driving around, I could kind of see how that might happen. Bars on windows and different things like that.
That was the
Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so
lots of drug traffic.
Still had a great time. Then we headed over to Arizona and had a nice cabin over there and did some more hiking. And
sorry, go back. What did you do in Albuquerque? Why were you there?
We needed a place to stop.
So it was just a night?
We were actually there for 2 days, just because, like, we had the whole week and our friends weren't getting into Vegas until either Wednesday or Friday, and Vegas is expensive. And so we were just like, you know, we'll take our time getting there. We don't need to drop all of our money on a Monday. And yeah, we just took our sweet time.
Did you go through Roswell or look at any of the alien stuff?
Did not.
Okay.
Which would have been cool, but we made our way to the Grand Canyon. I've kind of already divulged that information. It was immaculate. It was by far both of our favorite parts of the trip.
Told you.
Yeah.
Told you. Is that not the most impressive? When I saw that you were there the day of, I was like, I kind of took a moment to meditate and pause and just think, like, that sound of the wind swirling through that huge canyon and it going for as long as the eye can see, like, you sizing that up for the first time,
bro,
and having that experience.
You want to feel small?
Yeah.
Peer into the Grand Canyon. It was breathtaking. Loved it. I cannot wait to go back. I actually would, you know, we just kind of did our own thing. I would love to go back, camp there for several days in warmer weather, and get like a tour of it and go down into it and everything. But just from what I saw, man, was it impressive, and just a great memory. So we had a blast doing that. And then we trekked into Las Vegas. Before we got there, we went to the Hoover Dam, which we didn't do a tour there. And we saw the Hoover Dam, but, you know, kind of after you see the Grand Canyon and then you look at the Hoover Dam, it was kind of like, okay.
Yep.
And, yep, we get it. And impressive, like, you know, cool that somebody built that, you know, very intricate. But we were there for like all of 10 minutes and then booked it. We're like, okay, we get it.
Did you go to Horseshoe Bend? Bradley.
Maybe?
No, you would have
I didn't?
known. You would have
Okay.
known. It was near Page, Arizona, right by the Grand Canyon. Bro,
I don't know.
I told you to go to Horseshoe Bend.
My mistake, bro.
Man. Oh well.
Yeah.
So you got to the Grand Canyon on what day?
Tuesday.
And then you camped there Tuesday night in 12-degree weather.
Yeah.
What was the Fahrenheit during the day?
It was snowing all day. Yeah. And so it was like in the 30s.
And you camped outside in a tent?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty cool experience. I've never camped at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Made our own little fire, cooked our food, had some s'mores.
You know, as I understand it, you can like get on a mule and go down to the basin and like literally do like a rafting trip through the Grand Canyon for like 2 weeks type deal and camp on the bank every night. And
that's ideal.
Yeah, well, that's probably bucket list, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And Courtney and I also agreed that we'll probably never, unless there's multiple destinations that we'd like to hit, we're not going to like road trip that hardcore again. I'll get to more of that here in a bit. But anyway, made it into Vegas and chilled. Alec and Rochelle got there the next day. Oh, I got to tell you about our Thai massages.
You got there? Yeah, you do. You got there Wednesday or Thursday?
Got there Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. So Wednesday, we barely explored it all. You know, we were a little tired since we had just slept in a tent on the cold, hard floor. And, you know, we had mattresses. I'm going to get better ones in the future and better sleeping bags. I think ours held to like 30 degrees, but we needed to go.
Oh, you brought all this equipment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you pulled up and valeted the Civic in Vegas with like camping equipment in the back?
Yeah.
Dope. Where did you stay?
Park MGM.
On the Strip?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to stay in Fremont, downtown.
We had talked about it, but by the time we actually booked stuff, I found a deal on Priceline where it put me in like, there were 3 options and it was kind of randomized and it gave us Park MGM. We were happy with it. It was cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So Wednesday morning before Alec and Rochelle came in, Courtney booked us some Thai massages, right? So that's where they get up on your back and like walk around on you and do all that. So she had checked off on the form that she wanted a, you know, kind of medium massage, like pressure and stuff like that. And she highlighted the spots where she needed. I did the deep tissue massage. And boy, let me tell you, it was an experience.
So you're just like, I just want a heavier Thai person on me, or what?
Not a heavier Thai person, more yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm asking. You're saying they walk around on your back. It's like,
well, it's like, you know, I can put my hand on you and I can apply a little bit of pressure or more pressure, or I can really push in there. You know what I mean? So,
but I thought they were walking on you.
They did multiple things.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just walking on.
Are they holding onto a rope on the ceiling while they do that to like alleviate some of the pressure? Or are they putting all their weight on you?
All the weight, bro.
Okay.
You don't know the half of it. All right?
I don't.
First of all, I get in there, I put my head down on the little hole that they have, and the covering that they have was like all scrunched up, so the hole was really only big enough to breathe through my mouth. Like I couldn't really get much air through my nose, and maybe I should have mentioned that, because apparently, you know, an hour in, she like had me sit up for a sec and like she readjusted everything, and then I could breathe just fine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm in there, deep tissue massage. Courtney is over there, she's enjoying hers, and it was painful. The most
guy or girl?
Girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like, you're like, why would there be a guy there, bro?
Yeah, come on.
Okay. So this girl is hurting you.
Yeah, and Courtney's like kind of giggling like on her little board, because I'm like doing my best to like not make painful noises or anything like that, but I'm just like, I can't breathe. And so at one point, you just imagine she's applying like really hard pressure. Like if you know where your pressure points are and anybody's ever messed with you and like pushed down on your neck, just imagine that happening all over your body. Then she decides to get up on the board with me. She takes my right leg and pins it behind my left leg, and then proceeds to push my left leg until it's like hitting the back of my head. And I have not stretched that. I didn't even know I was capable of doing that.
Pay for video footage of this.
Oh my goodness.
She pinned your right leg.
Yeah.
Behind.
Pushed it kind of behind there.
And then. Wow.
Yeah. And so I was kind of rocking like a little horsey, like one of those toy horsey things. And my body just wasn't meant to bend that way. I'll be honest. At one point she like grabbed my hand and like I squeezed her hand because it was just so much pain. And she's like, okay, like you can hold on, but don't break my hand. And I'm just like, okay. And she's like, Brad, you have to relax. You have to relax. And I'm like, you're the one applying the pain. Like if you weren't pressing so hard, I wouldn't be this tense. I am a tense person to begin with, but you were literally prodding me. And
I just pictured this little Thai woman like working you over like a rocking horse, like rolling you back and forth like Cirque du Soleil.
Listen, man, it could have been in a movie. I tell you. What was another part? She was like massaging my lower back, kind of my glutes and everything, and she's like, you need to relax. And I'm like kind of clenching because once she gets the body moving and everything, like I had to pass gas. I'm not gonna lie. And so
oh my gosh,
so she's like on my back, like telling me to unclench, and I'm like, lady, if I did this, like you would be so angry at me right now. And I don't know how to say that. Like I'm in there with my fiance and the masseuse that's massaging her and everything. And
my goodness,
it was just like I'm having to clench while I'm in so much pain. And I don't know what's gonna happen next. I'm just like, and I can't breathe through the little air hole.
You're like,
I'm like gasping for air.
Back at Park MGM, like I just crapped myself while I was a human rocking horse,
bro. So moral of the story is I'm never gonna check off deep tissue again. I'm gonna do like the lightest one. I was sweating. The whole process made me. So I felt like I had just had a strenuous exercise. The next day, I had felt like I had been bench pressing and working my shoulders. Like it felt like a full workout.
Bro, I don't get any of that. When I go, I'm like, I want a woman, tell her to go light. This is to make me feel good.
Well, we had just slept in a tent. I'm like, I have some kinks on my neck. I need them to really get in there. And they really got in there.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
That's how you started your Vegas experience.
Yes.
Was getting ridden like a rocking horse.
Right.
Pooping all over yourself.
Well, that didn't actually happen. But
so did you end up farting at any point during this?
No.
Just that.
Yeah, held on tight. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I usually tense up when they get down to my glutes just because I'm like, ooh, that tickles,
Yeah. No, the force was so hard, like none of it tickled, even whenever they got to my feet. Like it was all pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before you go any further, can I please tell you one of my favorite stories of Vegas with none other than our buddy John?
Oh, please.
Okay. So we're both in our 20s at this point. We're in Vegas with some friends, and I don't know if it was the people that we were with or who chose this, but they made us go to that Cirque du Soleil show, Zumanity, which is their sex show.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand that, but I knew that we'd gone through some sort of package, and we had courtside seats. We had couch seats next to the stages.
Oh, wow.
So to start this performance off, they have like an MC, and he's this crusty old gentleman in like a rhinestone, suit that doesn't have, like, he's not wearing a shirt or anything, and it's like very form-fitting, and he's like, yeah, and he's like spanking his own butt, and then he's making people in the audience do it. He's like working them up. So he's like interviewing people on the couches. He's straddling them, making them like touch him. Like, it's a very strange thing. The next thing you know, there's it looks like a fishbowl. A fishbowl like descends from the ceiling.
Okay.
And there's 2 Asian girls in little like flipper thongs that are doing synchronized swimming around this fishbowl and coming to a head to like make out with each other type deal. Like, the tone was being set,
Yeah.
but nothing could compare to the finale because Zumanity was recruiting volunteers and unwitting volunteers. And this was, happening throughout the show for various reasons. And so I'm becoming more and more agitated that somebody might do something to me or require something of me. And so anyway, for the grand finale, they had, I don't even remember quite what was occurring, but there was potentially little people on stage, big Eastern European women in like next to nothing that ended up coming into the crowd. They found John. They pulled John onto a rotating stage, started taking his clothes off. They commented that they were like, "Oh, he's so pale." So they're roasting him while this is occurring. And so the next thing you know, John is lying down on a rotating stage with 2 Russian women on top of him as the stage rotates and everything happens concurrently.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out. It was the weirdest experience ever. Like, audience participation in that situation was so scary. He took the full brunt of everything that night. Like, they took partial clothing off, like exposed him to an entire gallery of people in a theater.
Yeah. And what were his thoughts afterward?
Yeah, he was down. He was unaffected. Typical John status,
held
was
it down,
able to take it, didn't care. I mean, I think he came off like kind of sheepish, like, wow, that was crazy, right? Like, but we've been in a bunch of crazy scrapes with John.
Sure,
So
he's like, normal day.
He's like, well, when in Vegas,
Oh, I can't imagine if it had been you instead.
Oh man, I was so concerned, especially because they kept eyeing me because they'd already pulled him on stage and we were on the same couch, and I'm like, why did we get these couch seats? Like, put me in the actual like stadium seating. Like, this is ridiculous. I didn't realize that it was. I don't know what I thought when they said it was a sex show. I'm like, oh, it's like a sexy show. Like, people are just gonna do gymnastics and it's gonna be sexy. Nope.
No.
Fish bowls, audience participation. It was scary.
Yeah.
So you don't fart. You go back to Park MGM.
Yeah.
You feel violated. I'm sure you sat in the shower and cried for a while.
I laid down for a long while.
So you got there Wednesday, and then Alec and Rochelle got there Wednesday?
Yeah. So we hung out with them that night. We went over to Fremont and hung out.
Where were they staying at?
The first night they stayed at a very nice hotel, in which I'm forgetting the name. Hold on, I can go back through our messages. If you want to continue.
Can you like continue the story while you do that, or
it's like,
one thing at a time?
Yeah,
I feel you, bro.
You want to do one thing at a time.
They were either at the D or if they were
the
downtown.
First night they stayed at the Venetian.
Okay.
And had an incredible room.
Did you walk through the Venetian?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You went through the shops and like the canals and all of that.
Yes.
And those squares that I love how Vegas will pull off like an indoor outdoor setting within one of the grand shops.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And then George and Madadi and Tosh and Gavin and Janet, they all got there Friday, and they stayed at the Palazzo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were all on the Strip.
Yeah.
Nobody stayed downtown.
No.
How much time did you spend downtown? Where all did y'all go?
I mean, we walked basically we walked the entire Strip.
So, but you never went downtown.
Yeah.
When did you go to Fremont?
Wednesday night and Saturday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you like took an Uber
Yeah.
About 6 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, and dude, the Uber situation is insane out there because nobody's working. Because
Well, that's kind of the
everybody,
situation everywhere.
well, especially in Vegas though, because they made more money cashing in on unemployment than they would have made Ubering, so they just stopped Ubering. That's what the taxi drivers were saying and everything. Courtney and I were fortunate on Saturday night. We had been waiting maybe about 30 minutes trying to get an Uber and had no luck, and we were able to flag down a taxi who had just dropped somebody off and just paid her cash.
Taxis are more of they're like a little bit more regulated there, and
Yeah.
I remember when I was there in New Year's Eve, took Ubers and taxis, but as it got to be New Year's Eve, like you couldn't get an Uber or a taxi.
Mm-hmm.
Stood out front of Aria in the taxi line for upwards of 2 hours New Year's Eve.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. But as far as Vegas goes, like, no, we didn't have really any crazy stories. Just did a lot of people watching. I gambled here and there, lost a total of $60, which I used the money that I had made off of Dogecoin, and because I made like $350 off of that. So spent some money, lost $60, didn't feel too bad about it. We went to the Mob Museum, which was awesome.
Okay.
That's like a street over from Fremont, and they had like a bunch of different things, different paraphernalia. They had different guns that were used by high profile mobsters. They even had one of this obviously isn't a real mobster, but they had one of the attires worn by Walter White from Breaking Bad on display. So we did that, and then went into their speakeasy and got like a tour of their distillery and everything. And they just talked about like the Prohibition era and how people were making alcohol during that time, that like a drink of it could make you go blind, but that's how desperate people were to get alcohol back then. And so that was interesting. And so that might have been the coolest part for me as far as Vegas goes. I mean, it was really great.
The Mob Museum?
Yeah.
Really?
Vegas, Courtney and I kind of agreed. It's just it's not really our lifestyle. Like, we don't do a whole lot of craziness. So, it was cool, and we were super glad to hang out with friends. Ate a lot of good food, but in comparison to like everything else that we did that trip, and especially again going to the Grand Canyon, I mean that was the highlight of our trip. But Vegas was still a great time.
Well, given the year that you've had, and knowing you to be the person that you are, especially with her, I predicted that. But
Yeah.
I'm not getting a real sense of like, it sounds like you guys kind of like bopped around, and like somebody would play a hand, and then you might all go to dinner, and but nobody was like really there to gamble or see shows or.
Well, there's still not a whole lot of shows out. There were some
Yeah.
comedy shows, and we looked up the comedians on YouTube, and we're entirely convinced that it would be a good show. And I'm like, we can do cheap comedy back home and not spend as much money. And some of the other shows, like you said, were the sex shows, which we didn't want to go to. And so I think I'd go back to Vegas if we had like a full itinerary and we knew exactly what we were going to be doing. But I mean, it was cool walking around and everything, but if we were just to do that, then I might pass on the trip next time.
Yeah, it's a spectacle, but you don't want to be there.
I'm definitely glad that I can say that I've been there and did it and everything.
It just bleeds you of money, like 100%. It was just so. I remember,
which I was prepared to lose money.
Every time we'd go to the little like cafe mart at the bottom of like where were we? Where did I stay the last time? At the Mandalay Bay. Bay. It was like $100. If you wanted to go get a couple drinks, a couple Cokes, a couple candy bars, necessities, whatever. Always $100. Everything was $100 minimum.
Yeah.
And it was just insane. Like, I remember New Year's Eve, like minimum cover for like most of like Tao and all of those places, if you just wanted to like stand there and be able to buy drinks, where it was like $2,000 to get in.
That's insane.
But the hotel resorts themselves, the way that they bilk you is just, I'm on Hotel Tonight. I think I just got level 6 or 7
Mhm.
recently. And so I can get in, and I booked Caesars for $70. I booked Mandalay
Wow.
Bay for like 100 something a night.
Yeah.
But then they have those resort fees. And then if you have any room service fees, which
yeah, room service will
if
get
you know me, I'm a glutton for room
Yeah.
service.
Mhm.
I'll pretty much, if a hotel is offering room service where I'm at, like on a trip, that's all I'll eat.
Yeah.
You won't see me eat outside of the room.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, it was cool.
so when did you leave Vegas?
Sunday morning.
Geez, you were there forever. 5 days?
No, we were in Vegas from Wednesday to Sunday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, yeah.
That's a long
guess it is.
time. I've never been there more than 3 days.
Yeah. It was cool though. And yeah, we made that 18-hour drive back with no stops except for gas. And we got home around 3 a.m. I took that Monday off and tried to recoup.
Oh, you drove straight through?
Yeah.
Oh, you left Sunday morning and then just got home?
Monday, 3 a.m.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you went back to teaching Tuesday?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. What were you saying about in the future there will be no road trips or something?
Oh, I mean, it's just kind of taxing. Like, we enjoyed it. We travel really well together, but going into the Grand Canyon, we're like, oh, there's an airport like right here, and we could have just flown in. Like, obviously during this trip we wanted to make all of these stops, but I'm just saying in the future we might just fly and then rent a car, like most people would do. That's all I was getting at, is unless there is a clear like destination, like we need to stop here and then here and then here, we'll be flying from here on out.
Yeah, a lot of people view it that way. They don't want to waste their time. Like, why would I do that when I could just get there and have read a book instead of driven on a 2-hour flight? For me personally, I disagree. Like, I know that excuse me, I know that sometimes you can save time and make more of maybe the in-destination trip if there's people waiting there for you or timely events. But to me, sometimes half the trip is the road trip. And
the journey was the real treasure all along.
I've trekked road trips from Dallas to Niagara Falls, Dallas to Wyoming and South Dakota and back, California and back several times, East Coast, Baltimore, Pennsylvania, New York, and back. Did it with I think I drove round trip in a weekend, like a 3-day weekend, for a weekend wedding to Asheville, North Carolina. And there were so many little pockets of the country that I would never really know about. Plus, it gives me the opportunity to sit down and listen to Howard Stern interview Willie Nelson. And as I'm passing through a hometown of Billy the Kid or whoever, maybe I switch over the YouTube or the podcast to reflect that person's journey. And it's very meditative for me.
Sure.
Very
and
introspective.
I understand that aspect of it too, and I'm not taking away from that.
And I do it alone.
Yeah.
Like, I have zero qualms. Like, most of those trips that I just referenced were alone.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And, we did have a great time, and all the places that we stopped on the way to Vegas was great.
Bro, you should have switched out Hoover Dam for Horseshoe Bend. That was the big gaff here, but we'll all go back sometime. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So that was just a week ago then, because you taught Tuesday through Friday, and today's Saturday, right?
And here we are.
Right on.
Yeah. So, I guess last time we recorded, I did say 3 weeks, but I opted not to do this past Wednesday just because I was still catching up on sleep. And now I feel refreshed. And here we are on this lovely, beautiful Saturday.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So give me an update on you.
I don't have a whole lot of updates. It's just kind of been grind as usual because we've been coming up to the end of the quarter here. And I think that, a lot of my updates are just work is like growing. And it's very...
That's what I wanted to hear about.
We've gone from like 5 to 15 people. And I know that I was talking to a customer the other day that had 1,400 people, and so she was kind of giggling a little bit. But
Yeah.
then I talked to another customer that's more familiar with startups, and she was like, "Oh, wow, like
Yeah.
that's tremendous growth." And as we've grown, we've started to fire ourselves from certain positions that we held or areas of oversight, and bringing in specialists and more team members and infrastructure. And so it's been kind of wild. I was in a group social the other day and like met one of our new employees for the first time. I was like,
Nice.
"Hey, Michelle, like wanted to come over and introduce myself. Like, I'm Carson. Oh, I've been meaning to catch up with you." Like, so it's kind of wild. It's like we're always in our virtual cloud office within Preciate Social in our rooms, which make the onboarding socialization process so much more smooth for not only us, but our customers
Sure.
that use the product. And when it comes to the brass tacks of like executing contracts and like, vendor setup forms and all the things that might be associated with the sales process, it's like the points of contact responsible for some of those tasks are changing. And you're going to the new person asking, "Are you up to speed enough to help me with this?" And then you go back to the old person who's so focused on all the different things that they're having to do to scale the company up, and they're like, "Oh, figure it out." Like, so it's an interesting dynamic. It feels like the first moment of scaling culture.
Yeah. Well, because we were kind of talking about being able to listen back on other episodes and seeing how much can happen in a year. And like, I think that holds true to your time at Preciate. Like, we can go back to whenever you first started, and it would appear maybe not every week, but more often than not, there's been some sort of growth in the company every time we discuss it, which I think is pretty awesome.
I appreciate that feedback and that perspective, because it's so true, and it's so different than any other experience I've ever had professionally, where when this latest batch of new hires started, we hired a VP of finance, a new developer, we're hiring a marketing intern or manager, all these different people. I end up thinking to myself, like, well, when did this person come in? When did that person come in? And you're always trying to, in more of a, I don't want to say stagnant corporate environment, but, something that is not changing as dynamically, something that's not being iterated on in terms of the product and the specialties being brought in to satisfy that growth. You just think like, oh, well, I've been here longer than Susan or Beth. But in this situation, I had to go back to LinkedIn and like see, when did Susie come in? When did Daniel come in? When did I come in relation to them? And what did the product look like at that time too? Because there's so many historical things that when you change the product all the time, and half the time the features that you'll ship, you're like, why weren't these here to begin with? And you almost don't know how you interacted with the product prior to that feature being present. You just forget. And so when we try to go back in a time capsule and think, well, why was this doing better 3 months ago? Or why was this doing worse? Well, let's go back and like read what we were doing with the product then. Like, do we have a screenshot? Like, I can't even visualize what it looked like or who was there to satisfy it then. It's a mind screw. It's
sure.
The growth from 5 to 15 is insane.
Yeah. Nobody can diminish that. Or if they tried, they'd be fools.
It's also interesting to see how a purpose-driven founder and CEO can vet and recruit like-minded, integrity-filled, hardworking people around him, and to watch that culture and vision scale. And you get more and more qualified people on board. Like, I was meeting with our new VP of finance the other day, and have a lot of respect for his track record and his outlook and all of this stuff. And, I told him, I said, the mere fact alone that we were able to recruit you and that we're having this meeting today shows me that I'm on the right track with something,
I like
because, when smarter people than you are coming in, you're like, all right, because that's the whole, get out there. And it was interesting. We had a group social this week where we were recognizing each other verbally and also doing blitz chats of like keywords that come to mind when we were highlighting a particular person. And it was like I was very honored, because I was referred to as like one of the legacy people that, you know, had kind of
right.
like been there through all of the different iterations in the B2B go to market. And that felt very special. And it's those kind of moments that reinforce like this new person that we hired, Michelle. I can already tell she's going to be culture queen, you know, like she started the random Slack channel. You know, she'll follow up on like weird fun facts with the wiki about it or something. Like she's adding a lot of like the interpersonal culture in many ways. And it's wild to watch. Sometimes when you have 5 people, you feel like, oh, we don't have a culture. We're just working so hard to try to like whack-a-mole and be strategic and plan for the future.
Right.
And then with 15 people, it's like there has to have been Kool-Aid, and the Kool-Aid that was handed out at the beginning of this is really sticking and mattering.
Yeah,
and
they spiked it.
Okay, yeah. Okay. We spiked it with purpose.
Yeah, that's right.
But honestly, it's kind of like, it's going to sound stupid, but I think it's kind of like watching your toddler walk for the first time.
Yeah.
You know?
Baby. Yeah, and there's like I said, there's growth every week. I'm always seeing you on Twitter with a new tool that you guys have added to Preciate, which seems pretty cool. I need to get back in. I know you've invited me a couple times, and I was busy doing something, or I was at home with no Wi-Fi, but I'd like to jump back in one of those rooms.
Would love to.
And kind of see what you've added.
They're persistent now. So it's like Zoom. Like if you have my Carson's room link, you could enter it at any time because I've enabled it to allow guests without the host being present.
Awesome.
So it's like ambient. It's like pervasively open. So companies can recreate the lunchroom or the break room where I want to go see if anybody's in there right now.
Yeah.
You know, like, and maybe there's nobody in there. Maybe there's 10 people all huddled having a secret conversation.
Right. So Tots, I'm going to give you a particular time and we're all going to get in there and talk crap about Carson.
Hey, what the?
Just jokes.
I really should use, dude, let's do that. One of the things that we're trying to do on sales at Preciate is like have more personal socials, and that always leads to virality. Like our product is very much in a viral situation. So let's have a weekly catch-up podcast meet, because what we have now is we have multi-presenter. Yeah. So you and I can go into a split screen performance for all the tots in the Preciate Social.
This is the evolution of our podcast. This is what it's going to turn into. We're going to move from podcast to seminars. And we're gonna host a virtual platform.
Dianetics.
We're gonna rope them in, so you guys will finally like be pressured into doing a Q&A rather than us asking you to ask us questions on Twitter.
Let me paint the picture. Yeah. What we'll do is, instead of the Wednesday podcast one night, what we'll do is we can set up a link, and anybody that wants to come can come, and we'll tweet it out. We'll send it to our email list.
Yeah.
And we'll send a meeting invitation. All you need is a desktop or a laptop with access to the latest version of Chrome, Safari, or Edge. You'll grab the link, you'll plug it into your browser, you're going to enter your first name, and then you'll enter the social room.
Because how cool would it be for us to be the main speakers of this, right? And I'm telling you about my upcoming trip to Vegas, and then we can give people a chance to speak up and like, hey, you should check out this place and this place, and then we go back into our funny stories, or we come back and I'm telling you all these events that happened to me in Vegas, like the Thai massage, and it's like, what's one of the things that happened to you guys, and we can open the floor and people can give us stories about what happened to them in Vegas or on one of their trips or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And then we get back into the funnies and.
Well, I mean, it would be a meet and greet virtually where we could literally have sidebar conversations. If Buff and Abroad wanted to come, we could take him aside and tell him how he's impacted us. And then we could go back into performance mode and address everybody all at once. Like, it's a free-for-all. It's like attending a networking event online. We should schedule this for this week. I'm serious.
And in all honesty, if we ever, like, I know we're kind of spitballing here and everything, but if I'm talking about this in real time and where my head's going at, it would be a lot more manageable to be able to just hop online wherever I am and we talk rather than, making that commute to Dallas every week. You know what I'm saying?
I do, because this was one of the narratives that I was talking about with my parents. You know, I talk to my parents about the show sometimes because they're fellow podcasters
Yeah.
over at Confessions of a Recovering
Mhm.
Landlord.com.
Shout out.
They've got they've really their episodes range in length, but they've really nailed this whole like 10-12 minute podcast format where
Mhm.
I really enjoy them because it's kind of like a brisk walk around the neighborhood, and you
Yeah.
get a couple nuggets of information, a new perspective, and a link to follow up on something, you know, that was pertinent to your whatever.
Mhm.
And what I was saying with them is that you and I had been talking like, hey, this is going to end at some point. What does that look like? And what would I do after that?
Yeah.
And my mom was talking about, you know, the podcast and all of this stuff. And I was making the comment, I don't know if it's necessarily an RSS feed or a podcast feed
Mhm.
to iTunes that is the next wave. Like, do I have a Clubhouse room?
Yeah.
You know, do I?
Heston gave me an invite to Clubhouse. I've been trying to navigate it. Talking with him, and he's made some recent posts on or tweets on Twitter saying that he prefers Twitter rather than Clubhouse. And I agree with him to some extent because it's like you have to be free and available for whenever people have their room open in order to hear them speak and different things like that. I haven't been navigating it as much, but I'd like to. But yeah, if we were able to send some invites out and have people join us in a Clubhouse, and we give them enough time to prep for it, like how many people would be joining that? You know, that'd be pretty special.
I don't know. You know, we definitely accrue listens. We get listens. We had 5 new listens on this last
Yeah.
episode within the last couple of days. You know,
Mhm.
like it.
Yeah, it just surprises me that some people go quiet for a while and then all of a sudden I'll get a text like, "Hey, like really love that episode," and I think we do have some retention there, which is appreciated. And if we could uh, uh, cultivate that group even further and make it more relational, like that could be something pretty special.
Yeah. But that whole fragmentation of, you know, Clubhouse is live podcasts.
Yeah.
It's like live ephemera. It's Snapchat for podcasts.
Mhm.
And um, Twitter, like space. I don't know if Heston was referring to just Twitter main product or spaces, but have you been
Mhm.
in a space?
I've seen people in there, and then like I don't know them well enough to want to join it.
I've joined one or
Um,
two to check out like the UX and the UI, like just see what
what does
the
that look like? Are you just an observer, or like can you
yeah.
chime in at any time?
So you can, I think on one or both of these platforms, you could like request to speak, and then based on your proximity to the host or the
Hmm.
speaker, maybe they would admit you. I don't quite understand with Clubhouse. Like sometimes I'll get in and I'll see like there's 68 speakers,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, and they're talking over each other, and
Hmm.
just the B2C consumer nature of Clubhouse with like I see every type of population in there talking about, is he cheating on you? All the way to like Crypto 101, Dogecoin, like,
Yeah.
you know,
My
Joe Rogan and Naval are in the same room.
Yeah, my standout room that I've joined on Clubhouse was a bunch of hip hop heads and other like prominent rappers and stuff. They were going down their list of least favorite rappers, and that was pretty enjoyable.
I'll bet.
Iggy Azalea came up. Uh, oh yeah, a few of the Lils. Um, yeah, but it was pretty funny. Anyway,
So I don't know. What I had commented to my parents is just that they're, whether or not you open up your smartphone and open up the podcasts app and hear my voice expressing something that makes me feel like I've purged or something like that, you know,
Mhm.
is therapeutic for me. Um, or whether you just opened your YouTube app and there was a live video of me doing that,
Mhm.
or maybe it was a Twitter Spaces, or you know,
Yeah,
I'm not really sure that the format matters as much. And
maybe
there,
not as long as it's easily accessible.
I've long been resistant to taking this podcast virtual because we could have been doing the whole split screen Zoom record this entire time and actually producing video content,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, for better or worse. That being said, maybe that is like something that we do a time or two in
Yeah.
experimentation as we head towards the winding down of this show.
Yeah. Yeah, the gentle good night. And I know, you talked about your mom and how she's been ready for us to be podcasting more. And I've been talking with my mom, and I know that I think they'd both be devastated if we just upended everything and never produced any more content. So I think it's worth looking into as far as what we can continue creating and what would be easier on us and still, maintain our creativity, because we get on here and we always talk about how meaningful this thing is to us, but if we could make it easier on ourselves and still be able to provide some of our insight and just be able to come together and share some of our thoughts, I think it's worth looking into.
You know what? You're right. Like, we're calling it off, folks. This show's not over. I mean, if we're willing to go the virtual route, then basically, if we're quitting the show, we're basically just saying that we don't really want to talk anymore. Like, no, I mean, we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah.
But I do want to experiment with some of these more interactive formats that we could engage with these tots and bots. Actually, no bots in my Preciate Social room, please.
Right.
But let's seriously schedule that. For real, because I know that we could have 50 people show up to that. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Charge an admission fee.
I'd love to meet Heather, your dentist,
I'm just
like
kidding.
your or is she your cardiologist?
Yeah, she's all of them.
I would love it if Isaac could come and
dude, I haven't talked to him since he graduated.
Love to see that.
He's living his best. He's living his best life.
I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you, Isaac.
Yeah, but that would be that. Like I said, something worth looking into.
All right, dude.
Yeah.
You've referenced a couple of the larger topics that you want to discuss. Why don't you?
Yeah, man. Let's talk stock market, bro.
Bro, like, I'm just illiterate on this stuff, so educate me. What's going on?
Back whenever the whole GameStop craze was going on, there was like a second tier in which people were buying into companies like BlackBerry, Nokia, AMC. I decided to get on AMC. Unfortunately, I got in on not the peak, but near it. Okay, so I put in a little chunk of money, and the next day,
chunk of change.
Next day it drops, and I decided not to sell or anything because I'm like, well, I've already lost so much money. I might as well wait and see if this thing can kick itself back into gear. So while I was on my trip, I get on the old Robinhood that I'm still using, even though a lot of people are hating on Robinhood still, which I get it. But
I wonder if trades are down on Robinhood. I haven't looked into that data at all.
I honestly haven't either, but I'm still using it, so I'm sure a lot of people still have my mentality. Like, a lot of us just got in. I didn't just get into stocks whenever the GameStop craze was happening. I had been on for about a year, and we had talked about it on the podcast, but I did try to cash in on the frenzy with the AMC. Anyway, it boosted one of the days that we were on our trip, and I ended up selling it, made a profit of $30, and now it's lower. And I'm glad I did, because now the price is lower than when I had initially bought it. So I'll probably buy back in on that eventually. But the thing that I do want to talk about, which I don't think I talked about, what's up?
So I Googled this. It's Saturday, March 27, folks. 3 days ago, first big news article from the AP. Robinhood files plan to go public.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? They're going to cash in on their
$40 billion IPO.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I guess they're doing okay.
Yeah, they must be.
I'm like Googling it. Yeah. Are trades down on Robinhood? And they're like, IPO.
Right. Which I don't understand how that works, I guess.
What do you
because
mean?
they're providing a place for you to purchase stocks, but now you can purchase stocks into their company. I don't know. I'm ignorant.
It's a company. Like, it's a business. So
sure.
In the same way that you can purchase stocks in other companies, you know, you can purchase stock in Robinhood. And so up until this point, it's been all, you know, private equity type money, venture capital money that's been infused into Robinhood. But whenever you go for like a big raise and you're ready to like offer it to the public and then go with the transparency of being on a publicly traded, you know, stock exchange.
Sure.
Yeah, but I don't claim to be really formidable with my knowledge about this either, honestly.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the whole money, I don't really feel like I understand money for real.
I don't either. And I talked about my ignorance whenever it came to crypto last episode, but I do want to talk a little, like I've been trying to educate myself more. And I don't think I even mentioned last podcast, but do you know what NFTs are? Did we talk about that last time?
No, I don't know what those are.
Non-fungible tokens.
Okay.
That's what it stands for. If a currency is fungible, that means like I have a dollar, you have a dollar. We trade that dollar to each other and we still own the same amount of money, right? Like those equal each other. Same with a Bitcoin. Like I own a Bitcoin, you own a Bitcoin. We exchange those, we still have the same amount of money. A non-fungible token can be considered currency, but like whatever I own does not equal whatever non-NFT you own, okay? So the biggest way to buy NFTs right now is using Ethereum, which is another cryptocurrency, and that's something that I have invested in already. I learned about NFTs through the band Kings of Leon. I saw them trending on Twitter. You guys know that song "Use Somebody." That's one of their most popular ones. They decided to sell their album as an NFT, which is really interesting because now that they've done this, if you own the NFT and you decide to resell it, then they can continue making a profit off of every time their product is resold to someone else. Like they make a cut of it. You can also do this with concert tickets, which is incredible because it's like basically eliminating scalpers. It's like you can set a limit on how high your NFT can be sold. Like, so if I don't want anybody ever selling this for more than $100, it can't be. And no matter what, I'm going to make a cut off of it. So if somebody's interested in a concert ticket and I'm selling it as an NFT instead of a regular ticket, you make that purchase and you try to scalp it to somebody else. Well, no matter what, since I'm the creator, I can make a profit off of that too every time it changes hands, which is awesome to me. It's
what
awesome.
The what? Like,
yo, it's
is this
it's
a Christopher
crazy.
Nolan movie? Like, what is going on?
That's what I'm saying. And people are selling NFT. The biggest thing that's happening right now is artwork. Like people are creating digital artwork. And if you have quote unquote an original copy, like it's not a screenshot, but you actually bought it from the content creator, like some of these things are going for millions of dollars. Or sorry, not dollars, millions of Ethereum, which I think Ethereum right now is like $1,600 something per piece of Ethereum. I guess I don't know. It's crypto's going insane. But anyway, I own the Kings of Leon NFT album, and I feel like it could be worth something someday because I believe it's one of the first, if not the first album that's ever been sold as an NFT, and I own one of them. And
so what does it even mean? What
so
did you get?
You can.
How'd you get the album?
I purchased Ethereum, and then I used that Ethereum to purchase the album.
Where?
The album was being sold on this website called Yellow Heart, and then you can kind of transfer some of your coins into that website and then purchase the album. And another cool thing is like whatever content I create, I can make one of them. I can make 100. I can make it like a special edition, and only this amount of people can own it. Or I can set a time limit, like 48 hours, and as many people as possible that wants this thing can purchase it within 48 hours. But after those 48 hours, it goes away and nobody else can purchase it.
I don't know why we're talking about sunsetting the podcast or our content creation partnership here together when you're just getting dangerous at selling this ish online with NFTs and gummy bears and whatever else is going on. Like,
right, dude.
you need to e-commerce
what's his name?
this thing.
Jack that owns
Yeah.
Twitter. He sold his first tweet for like millions of dollars. Yeah, that
What
makes
does that
zero-
mean?
Right, what does it mean? It's just who knows?
What's internet?
Yeah, who knows what it means? But the future is now, Grandpa. Like,
I don't get it.
it doesn't matter. Just create something, upload it, and try to sell it. Who cares what it means at this point? We need to get in on this craze.
But what is delivered?
What do you mean? What's delivered? The content, like.
So how did you get your music? Did it send it somewhere? Like,
yeah, I own it. They're shipping me a limited edition vinyl, so I'll have like a physical.
Okay.
Thing.
How do you, digitally? How do you own it?
Digitally, you have like an NFT wallet, like basically where you can show off. There's different websites that you can sign up for where it shows off your NFT collection and everything that you own.
So your Kings of Leon album is in your NFT gallery?
Yeah.
Because it's
the only thing that I own. So
it's the NFT.
Yeah.
So, okay. So NFT is not a currency. It can be used as a currency because you can resell the Kings of Leon album?
Yes. And I can sell that.
Who would you sell that to?
Whoever is interested.
Oh.
Another thing that we can talk about is...
How did you get all this information?
Twitter. I literally was on my my free period at school. I get on Kings of Leon's trending. I'm like, okay, they have a new album, and then it's like, no, this is a bigger deal. And I'm seeing how they're like the first band that's fully committed to this NFT. I'm seeing artists like Shawn Mendes and a few other people. Like Shawn Mendes is a big name right now, a huge pop star, and he's going this route as well. There's different tiers, and if you spend this much Ethereum, you can get a higher level tier, and that means that like if a content creator decides to give you tickets for life, like for their concerts, you can do that. And so people have like purchased like it's not just season tickets, but like lifetime tickets to attend these concerts because they paid for this certain tier. So I learned about it through Twitter, and I tried to brush up on it as quick as I could. I downloaded these different apps like Coinbase and a few other things, and transferred some of my Ethereum into this, purchased the album, and waiting to get my vinyl. And I do own the album digitally as a NFT.
That's so wild, man. I commend you on your curiosity. Like,
yeah,
you have a better ability than I do to see something on Twitter and go down the rabbit hole and then, have a pretty firm command of what's actually occurring.
I'm trying to.
What's been driving towards all of this increased capacity for financial maturity? And like, I mean, you're investing, you've got this portfolio now,
Mm-hmm.
you're downloading the apps. Like, what is this fiscal maturity or awareness? Like, what is your goal here? And how did this start?
Okay, so we can tug at a few different threads right now. One of them being, I am very comfortable and okay with my line of work being a teacher at a small private school in Keene, Texas. And I can see myself teaching for the rest of my life, regardless of, I can get my master's, which I'm working on. I'm registering for this summer's classes sometime this week. I understand that in this line of work, eventually it can't be about the money because I'm going to hit a ceiling. I would like the opportunity to, we've talked with Heston, and we've talked to a few other people, and we've even talked about it ourselves, how we want our money to make us money while we're sleeping, right? I can't do that just teaching. And, I'm starting a family. I have some money to play around with. And how cool would it be to jump in on one of these things? How cool would it have been to have bought a Bitcoin at $100 and to have all that money now? You get what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%.
So I'm not saying this is going to be around forever, but I would like to be at the before this thing really explodes. Like, I'm trying to get in on a GameStop experience. Like, I understand some of this doesn't happen overnight. Like, I know a lot of people who have been investing in different stocks for a long time. They kind of smirk or look down on people who are just trying to make quick cash. So I'm not doing that. I think I have talked about this, but I've invested in like electric car uh, charging stations, like the company Blink, because different car companies are talking about how they'll switch to fully electric cars in the next 15 years or something like that. So I'm trying to play the long game whenever it comes to that. But I'm also trying to make some quick cash.
You have different categories of risk that you're taking,
right.
And some of them are longer term, investments, and then some of them are maybe shorter term, quick cash grabs that could pan out. But I'm sure that you're allocating a ratio of your investments to those shorter term gain situations and handling that appropriately. I guess my bigger point of feedback that I've been making through this is like, so your sustenance from teaching is your passion, your livelihood to a certain extent. It is your job and your calling, but you are willing to go outside of that because you have greater financial aspirations or desires for security.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, myself and my fiance, we will always be able to live comfortably. We will have the luxury of being able to take trips and do all of these fun things. But why not push for more?
But when did this start? Because I've really noticed it verbally crop up with some of the
several. I mean, maybe it's almost been a year by now. Whenever I first got into Robinhood, and we were talking about that, and I asked Heston to DM me, and he sent me some information on that, which was really helpful. And so it's kind of always been in the back of my mind, but whenever I saw this NFT thing pop up, and I'm like, oh, I really could get in on the ground floor on some of this and potentially make like a huge profit, like that's kind of exciting. And so I won't say that in all aspects I've been looking down like an incredible amount of avenues and doing all that, and I still don't have a firm grasp or understanding on what I'm investing in. But
nobody that invested in a future like decacorn or unicorn did in some ways. Like, I also think that this story is really powerful and interesting because your creative passions and niche followings like might have netted you early access to something that was about to blow up in a more earnest way. Like if you go on music Twitter and
if you go back to the episodes where I'm talking about Joe Budden and how he's moving from Spotify to SoundCloud and Apple and all of this, because he's a content creator and he's wanting what he thinks his episodes are worth. And I'm seeing other artists that are doing that too. NFT is all about the content creator and making sure that they get a slice of the pie. And not just these streaming services bleeding these artists dry. And it's so much bigger than music, but I found this pathway through music. I'm not a huge Kings of Leon fan, but their music's enjoyable. I listened to their new album on Apple Music, and I'm like, this is something that I think is really cool. I
thought you listened to your NFT.
Well, that too, but their album is on streaming services, but I own a tier that sent me a physical. What's up?
Did they email you a zip file with the actual music, or like what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
They emailed you a zip file.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, and then they also came out with like digital artwork that like the image kind of changes and glows and different thing like that. And it's really like collector's items. If I want to get into this, I can't remember exactly what they're called. But trading cards, like people collect baseball cards and everything like that.
It's wild.
Pokemon cards. They have digital sports trading cards now that go for millions of dollars. And it's kind of the same idea. It's just in the trading card world.
Is it a PDF?
No, I don't think it's a PDF.
I still just don't quite understand how the thing with Bitcoin even that I don't understand is if there's like this digital ledger in the cloud or blockchain based or whatever that means, like, why is it that there are certain laptops that have $40 billion worth of Bitcoin on them and you can't get them from anywhere else? Like, you can't log into your account or something. Like,
So everybody wants
there's so many dudes listening to this podcast right now that are like slapping their foreheads and they're like, Carson is afflicted on this stuff.
And I don't pretend to know the answer, and I would love to hear any. Like, Brock has kind of been a mentor to me through some of this as well. Buffing abroad, I've been texting him, and he's the one that got me in on Ethereum, and so I already owned Ethereum whenever these NFTs came about, and I'm like, oh, I already have some that I can spend, and so I used some of what I already had. I replaced my Ethereum on Robinhood, and so I'm back to what I already had originally owned. And yeah, he's been guiding me through that. So I'm sure somebody can explain this a lot better than I can, because I'm still researching and trying to learn through all of this.
All right, our first Clubhouse weekly catch-up podcast presents Buffing Abroad and Heston on crypto, Ethereum. I'm gonna.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Well, I've already explained the definition of an NFT, and so I did find this article. This is something that I read before purchasing, because I wanted to make sure this was a legitimate thing and everything. So I'm just going to kind of read, and maybe that'll help explain a little bit more. But it says, at a very high level, most NFTs are part of the Ethereum blockchain. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Dogecoin, but its blockchain also supports these NFTs, which store extra information that makes them work differently from, say, an Ethereum coin. It's worth noting that other blockchains can implement their own versions of NFTs. So what's worth picking up in the supermarket? NFTs can be anything digital, such as drawings, music, your brain downloaded and turned into an AI. But a lot of the current excitement is around using the tech to sell digital art. So it says, you mean like people buying my good tweets? It says, I don't think anyone can stop you, but that's not really what I mean. A lot of the conversation is about NFTs as an evolution of fine art collecting, only with digital art. It says, do people really think this will become like art collecting? I'm sure some people really hope so, like whoever paid almost $390,000 for a 50-second video by Grimes, or the person who paid $6.6 million for a video by this person named Beeple. So yeah, digital art. I don't know. It's really like collectors. Like, you see a lot of people collecting physical shoes, and I think the argument here is that it's not physical, it's something digital. So what makes that valuable? Why can't I have? But if you're an actual collector and you take that seriously, you're always going to find value in owning something original. So people can make copies of it, but they will never have the original, and you have an authentic receipt in the blockchain that shows your ownership, and that's what makes it valuable. But if you don't view something digital as property or anything like that, then you're not going to find value in it anyway, and that this conversation's really not for you, and you probably think it's stupid.
This isn't your particular investment strategy for your nest egg, I guess, but
yeah.
I appreciate the education. It's wild.
It's exciting. And from the music standpoint, I love that it's trying to eliminate scalpers and different things like that. Like, whenever I'm trying to go to a concert and I get in on it late, and somebody's like trying to price gouge me for $300 for a $25 ticket, I love that it could potentially put an end to that as well. And that the artist gets a percentage of every time it changes hands.
That part is very wild.
Yeah.
The reseller stuff. Wow, man. Okay, so are you good on NFTs?
Yeah, I'm good.
You feel like you've purged? I know that was like, I see why you wanted to share that now, but I'm still struck by the fact that your creative direction, like, and interests could have netted you early access to something. Like, maybe you got wind of something as it was, just starting to pick up steam, for instance. Yeah. So that's wild. Keep me updated on that.
Will do.
What else do you have?
You have some stuff?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I just knew that you had a couple topics that you were wanting to.
Yeah, let me throw you off for a sec. Let's see.
Because I started
here.
on track, folks.
Yeah.
Folks.
Would you rather be in a tank of snakes or a box of bees?
Probably a box of bees.
You think so?
Yeah.
Like just like if you stand still, maybe they won't sting you? Or what's your thought process here?
Just that
You more afraid of snakes?
yeah, than anything. Like
Okay.
so
That's fair. I think I would join you in that. I'll take a couple. Like I'm not allergic to bee stings, so I think I'd be fine. But snakes, that would be terrifying.
yeah, snakes are a no-go for me.
Yeah. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Wait. 100 duck-sized horses.
Yeah, so like little tiny horses running at
So
you.
I could just kick them.
Or yeah, right. Or one horse-sized duck.
Bro, obviously
The little
horses. Like,
yeah.
dude,
Punt 'em.
you've heard about my experience with birds and ducks and all this
I
stuff.
saved the best one for last. But we'll get there. Yeah. Okay.
A horse-sized duck is the most terrifying thing I've ever heard of. I'd rather be in a snake pit than have a horse-sized duck chasing me.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
maybe it's my avatar and like I put my freaking like ponytail into it and like connect with it and ride it.
Okay. So I want to ask you this final one that I have. What would you rather have all dogs or all birds attack you every time they saw you? So we know that birds typically attack you, but if you could change it to dogs, would you, or would you rather continue being attacked by birds?
You're saying at any opportunity
Any opportunity that a dog caught a glimpse of you or a bird caught a glimpse of you, it would attack you. which one would you choose?
Man, I'm just gonna kill myself in that situation because life would be untenable. I couldn't walk outside. I mean, you couldn't walk into the elevator if somebody was walking their dog. Like,
yeah. Oh, elevator.
But most of
true.
the dogs will be on leashes in the little bougie neighborhood I live in. So
Sure.
there'll be some little Bichon Frise or whatever, like Labradoodle that's on a leash, and the owner would be mortified if it got off the leash and attacked me.
Well, they wouldn't.
Whereas birds are everywhere all the time. You don't necessarily see those little.
But they see you.
And they come for
Think
you.
about driving in your car and
I
they
would
catch a glimpse of
choose-
you through the window and they
Exactly.
like dive bomb at you.
Dude, you are freaking me out. Like, I'm picturing Planet of the Apes and their birds. Like, okay. But I would rather be attacked by dogs in that situation.
I don't know. You have already survived bird attacks. Getting mauled by a dog.
Well,
Like whenever you brought up the elevator one, I think that's what changed my thoughts on it.
a dog is on foot though, unless listen, if I'm out on a back road and there's a bunch of wild dogs like chasing after me, it's over. But in the neighborhood that I'm in, if I had to maintain a lifestyle of walking to the grocery store, walking to work, like going to dinner, my chances of birds being somewhere in that, like, they're always in the air.
Yeah.
They're always in the trees. There's so many birds and nobody has a bird on a leash.
Right. Okay, that's fair.
That's my whole point, is that the dogs are not wild. The dogs are kept and they're on leashes for the most part. And the owner is responsible for their behavior. I could sue the owner if I'm attacked by their dog. I can't sue anybody if a bird does something to me.
Yeah.
And a bird is going to be untoward and it's not going to be cool. So
All right.
in this scenario, all of these are not preferential.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that's the point of
I
would
love
you
these
rathers,
would
though.
you rathers. Like, all mine are like so inappropriate.
Yeah.
I feel like
yeah.
But so would you rather I'm gonna do something for you now.
Okay,
Let me think about it.
that's fair. This went better. Well, this went actually exactly how I wanted it to go. I'm glad we could
I'm glad for you.
get into your psyche and how
To
you
my psyche?
Yeah.
You want to go further?
Sure.
Duck-sized horses and stuff?
Yeah.
Or horse-sized ducks?
Yeah.
That one really threw me for a loop for
I
a
know.
second.
It was crazy when I read it.
Yeah, that's my most. I'll dream about that tonight.
Yeah.
I'll be like, no, and I'll just be all thrown off.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear more about your topics. I got one joke for you.
Well, I feel like the topic that I was going to go into was like violent.
That's. Oh,
Let's do the joke.
okay. How does a dude from the Midwest pick up a girl? A tractor. Isn't that good? A student told me that one that week. This past week. I
I
thought it was
like
pretty
that
good.
one.
a tractor.
I liked how Elon tweeted out this week. He's like, if I ever have a scandal, can we please call it Elongate?
That's good too.
Oh, man.
All right, I guess we're getting violent.
Man, I don't know where we'll go with it per se, but
Okay.
you know, it's interesting. You made a comment earlier about mask laws and
Yeah.
guidelines kind of changing in some areas, and I typically find myself to be the only person in the room with a mask at first, if that's, you know, what I thought I was walking into, but we'll take it off if that's the scenario. But as we start to have bigger gatherings especially in more open states, you know what we've had 3 of in the last week?
What's that?
Is like pretty decent sized mass shootings.
Yes.
Like, I think there was another one overnight in the wee hours of this early morning in Virginia Beach. 2 people are dead and at least 8 injured after shootings near the oceanfront in Virginia Beach, Virginia. You know, somebody also did not enjoy their Thai massage over in Atlanta and shot up, I think, multiple massage parlors. I think that there's tangents that we could go on in that area. And then there was another one too, I thought.
I believe so. Was there another one in Colorado?
Oh, there was, dude, that one was horrifying. There was just like shots fired at a grocery store. And an officer entered and was the last person killed in this massacre that killed like 10 people.
Father of 7 leaves behind 7 children.
So I find that interesting. I saw Ben Shapiro was having a hot take on, you know, mainstream media picking up on this. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to be the person that advocates for just sweeping gun control in a particular way. But like, it's just crazy that the first mass shootings were so down, car wrecks were down.
Did
COVID.
you listen to Dave Chappelle?
No.
Several months ago, Dave Chappelle, he was given one of his performances at his property, and he was saying like the best thing that has come from COVID is, you know, no more mass shootings. It hasn't been happening. Like all these deaths, as far as that goes, like intentional murders are down. And he was just saying how you know, he hopes they stay down, and obviously with more people, with more gatherings happening, it's spiked back up.
It's wild to think. I remember being struck by that when I was at Mandalay Bay in December. At one point I was thinking like, oh, I looked across the street and there was a huge parking lot, and I remember we kept looking at it, and I remember thinking to myself, that's where that country concert was. We're like, however, I mean, that was like the most deadly mass shooting in history or something, right?
So yeah, maybe.
So I don't even know if that room is available, but I just thought about that and how quickly we move on, because some people wouldn't even want to stay there. They'd be so horrified by that experience. And it's also interesting that it's such a big country with so many people and so many different pockets. And, you know, if you're not watching CNN or Fox News or, you know, seeing the front page, and you're only on, you know, an NFT oriented channel on Twitter or Tumblr, whatever's going on, you miss that 10 people were killed in Boulder, you know, 10 people were shot in Atlanta, you know, this many people were shot in Virginia Beach. And the people that are around that bear witness to it. And it's interesting how we all glean different experiences in the same time span. I know that's one of the most basic concepts, but sometimes when I strip it down to the base essentials, it's so weird.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying as far as like gun laws and everything, I don't know what needs to happen, but clearly, you know, you always hear these speeches like, this isn't who we are as Americans. And it's like, maybe it is. I mean, it seems to be happening more often than not. There's clearly an issue that needs to be addressed. I don't know what that looks like, but
this was one area where, you know, I think this was a rational argument, but Ben Shapiro did kind of make a little bit of sense to me. He's like, you know, you can say that, oh, this is who we are as Americans, but he's like, that's not how I was yesterday. That's not how 330 million other Americans were. There was 330 million Americans that got up, you know, went to work, went to school, had family dinner, went to bed, didn't load up an AK. There's 300 million guns in the U.S. and there's over 100 million long guns. And, you know, only one was used for that particular incident that day.
Sure.
And American or not American. I'm so sick of all of that kind of divide. This comes down to like mental illness and community and people that are angry. And I personally think that, we're all born sinful to a certain extent with the propensity to sin and be selfish. And, we through nature and nurture, you hope that we go down the right path and have a firm foundation for decision making and morals. But there are just bad apples that don't. They get a genetic roll of the dice. They saw trauma at an early age. And, we're really just brain sponges that absorb and mimic, like we're actors. And if you, I could create the perfect breeding ground to raise a little criminal in, if I wanted to set up, some sort of stagnant vat, for a life. So I think that there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that's just bad like that.
Yeah.
And as we scale numbers, like in 1920, we had 1.5 billion people, and now we have 7 billion, 7.5 billion, 100 years later. Yeah. With the rapid explosion in population and urban centers, and people are falling through the cracks. There are babies that are not taken care of, and people that grow up in bad systems, and a lot of this homegrown terror that they refer to are incels, involuntary celibates, guys that feel like losers. They're not contributing to society. They are typically white and loners and virgins and angry at women. That leads us to the massage parlor one. Like everyone is, trying to say that it's hate against Asian Americans, and of course on its face, like he murdered a bunch of Asian Americans. Like it's hate against Asian Americans, 100%. Whether or not it was 100% wholly inspired by racial hate and division, I think it had more to do with the sex addiction. And mainstream media was refuting that, statement by, I think it was the lead prosecutor or investigator had come out and said something like, we're not really sure if this is like a hate crime per se yet.
Yeah.
And everybody was up in arms about that.
I don't know. That did happen while we were on our trip, and so I do remember seeing it trending, and I haven't looked much into it, so I don't have many thoughts on it. I will say, after hearing your thoughts on it, I could even retract my statement or flip my side and join you in on that and saying like, okay, maybe this isn't who we are as Americans, but clearly there is a handful of people who do go out and attack or kill innocent people like you and me. So my question would be, do we just
what makes us
do
American?
we just lick our wounds and just be like, okay, this is something that happens and we have to put up with it every once in a while?
What makes us Americans is the fact that we collectively, whether we're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever you are, whatever your stance on guns is, whether you don't have any or you have a whole arsenal, we all come out with common disgust for the behavior and utter rejection. Like we will not stand for that, all of that stuff. Our reaction, our diagnosis of the problem and how we would maybe treat the problem, that's where we have the prerogative as Americans to disagree. And it's a beautiful system that we can come out and globally condemn something, whether we own guns or not. And so, yeah, that's my perspective on that aspect. Do we just, I guess that we're the people that want a treatment plan and a plan of action and to take action. I think that if this has hit anywhere close to home for you, how could you not feel that way?
Yeah.
The activists from Parkland and all that get so much flack from the right sometimes, like, imagine what their experience has been and what they've been through. It's pretty easy to get behind their standpoint.
Sure.
What they don't understand sometimes is that criminals will always find a way to get guns. Whenever you take away the ability for common citizens to have, the right to bear arms, criminals are already trafficking guns that we're not supposed to have as it is.
Yeah.
The cartel and the cartel members in the US have like machine gun caliber stuff that they shouldn't have access to, but they always will because they're not going to Roy's gun shop, and trying to produce legal documentation to get it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
They're coming across the border, and in Chicago, they're coming across from Illinois all the time. Like, so that's why it's almost interesting that we have different gun restrictions per state
Yeah.
in a certain way when we're all one unified country. That's always a little bit of a weirdness, but I'm sure that there's good reasons in some ways that you could talk to me about. But
Yeah. The only thing I would see the beauty in being able to decide per state, it's like, well, if you don't agree with it, there's other places within the United States where you can go where, you know, your beliefs are upheld.
that's scary though when we start talking about, you know, I'm all for states' rights and everything, but at the same time, it's the United States of America, and you would like for most aspects of your decision on where to live be based on, well, where'd you grow up? Where do you like the topography, the culture, the food, like normal stuff like that, and not necessarily like, well, Texas allows beheadings, and over in Colorado they're a little bit more PC, so you can't throw somebody that's gay off of a roof. You know,
Right,
like,
well, that's
what if we got to that point and became warring with each other?
Yeah, I can envision that happening with women's rights as far as, you know, abortions or gay rights, or, you know, a whole thing that divides all the left and right wingers, you know.
I think that in terms of a reaction or a treatment plan, I don't think that you should have like a lot of gun control to a certain extent. Like, I think that everybody should have the right to bear arms, and um, so that's that. The common Republican response is like better community, more fellowship, like better mental health, and I don't think that that is going to scale to avoid these situations.
Yeah.
There's more humans, there's more edge case scenarios, there's more things that could go wrong. As the number of humans increases, you know, the number of bad things increase. Commiserately, the number of good things also might increase. You know, like,
Yeah, for sure.
We're flawed. We're not just one way or the other.
Mhm.
We're capable of both. And so the big thing is like acceptance. And we have to accept that we're in a world where things occur that we'll never have an explanation to.
Yeah.
We'll never have closure on. It is what it is. This is the new norm.
Mhm.
And this is the only moment that you really know will go this way, that you'll have this amount of health, this amount of wealth, whatever it is that you have. It's this moment, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
I think we try to make collective sense of something and say, well, this is our response to the horrific images that we saw in Boulder, Colorado this morning. And really, it's like, you got to be the change that you want to see in the world. You got to be the person that helps the next person. You got to pay it forward, like pay for the person's coffee in the next line, and hope that they do something for somebody.
Yeah. And also, if you're trying to make sense out of, like, not everything always makes sense.
That's the exact point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't make sense out of something or somebody's actions if they didn't have a logical reason to do it.
Yeah, man. I just think it's interesting that coming back out of COVID, you're starting to see the first murmurs of bigger gatherings and different things like that. And it's just going to be interesting if this is kind of the narrative moving forward about, well, the minute people were 2 or 3 were gathered, you know, there was a mass shooting.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And it's a way to further divide us and wedge us against each other. And that's not great.
I agree.
You want to talk about Biden falling down the stairs of Air Force One?
Saw a meme where it was American Sniper taking his shots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I saw Trump hitting a tee shot. And
that one too.
When I first saw the video, I thought that it was doctored. Like, I thought that somebody had just made that for funny. I didn't realize it was the real deal. And then I was like, I felt bad for him. I'm like, somebody needs to take care of this poor old man.
Yeah. It's, no matter which way you slice it, I don't want to get negative. I don't know. We just deserve so much more as a country.
All right, let's go back to your topics. Glad we did crime and justice, a real justice on this episode.
Yeah. Well, let me go to my notes. I don't know if I have any more. Justin Bieber's new album.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, his music has always been great.
Yeah, but like the last one, the Yummy Yum album.
Yeah, I didn't love that song.
Didn't love it. The if you're into pop music, I think he put out a pretty great album.
Boy, that one.
Surprised.
And if you had it all.
Yeah, the lonely one.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That one. I'm like, Justin.
Yeah.
I felt something in that one.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Did you watch the music video?
No, man, I can't.
It'll hit you even in the feels even more.
I haven't been able to listen to a sad song in about 7 years.
Yeah, I don't listen as much either.
I swear it's like Sam Smith has the most beautiful voice. Is it Sam Smith, the English guy? He always has the most beautiful voice ever. And then I start listening to the lyrics and I'm like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah. I don't write as much as I used to because, my bag was writing sad stuff and I'm just not, in many circumstances in my life, I'm not as sad or have no reason to even like tap into that.
I mean, yeah, like you're so rational and lucid in this moment. We should do more morning podcasts because you're like, yeah, I've just tried to create and foster a culture and atmosphere of love and support so that I don't feel as bad if something sad comes on. I can just appreciate it and it doesn't hit home.
Just trying not to crumble, guys,
Such a straightforward diagnosis. No, talking about writing though, that's something that I was going to talk to you about this week, and just like an observation even from work that I've had as things have been so dynamically changing, and you almost want to look back and be able to think. I get asked a lot for reference dates, like, hey, do you know when we shipped the new version of pricing? And I'll say, yeah, I think it was, February 20th, because on the 21st, I hit all these people saying X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
In documenting quarterly rocks and goals and all of this different stuff, like, I've thought about success and failure in personal life, and I'll be honest with you, something that I've struggled with this year as things have gone up and down in my personal life has been the lack of the week over week podcast, like the ability to make sense of it all with you, feel like I can put out a product that leads to fulfillment in my personal life, all of that stuff. And so it's led me to do more introspection, and I stumbled across Theo Vaughn on this past weekend. He had another Jordan Peterson, like 2-hour long podcast. And I was like, I was fascinated that Jordan Peterson saw something in Theo Vaughn that he would continue to take an audience, like a repeat audience with him, because Theo's like silly, but he's getting more serious while maintaining his silly vernacular at the same time.
Yeah, he's great.
But he holds it together. And so I start listening to this podcast, and this podcast was a page turner, if you will. Yeah. I couldn't put it down because Theo was expressing things in such a relatable way that was eliciting a response from Jordan Peterson that was so present and so in the moment and so fitting to like where I was at, talking about if you don't have personal goals that are written, they've been written down and taken external to your body, that they've gotten off of your mind. You don't have to house them there and bear them as a burden anymore. You purge them. They're on a piece of paper you can hold yourself accountable to. If you don't have personal goals, you'll never have like a true sense of fulfillment in terms of success or failure.
Yeah.
You'll never create failures that lead to better learning. You will only you'll just continue to exist and kind of like, well,
you wander around aimlessly.
And I realized that maybe throughout my teens and 20s, I was kind of thinking like, well, I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up, and we'll take it from there. And, I'll settle into the right career path or position, or it was always kind of professionally based because I didn't necessarily have immediate children, family aspirations that are typically the drivers for finding a spouse, purchasing a home, moving that process forward. Without that, and I've said this before, like when my work calendar disappears, suddenly I don't have a calendar. And that was something that with golf and this podcast and certain things like that, I've gotten better about over the last couple of years. But I still didn't have any personal written goals with any sort of time span or anything associated with them. And just thought like, well, I'll develop those surrounding a partner or children that maybe I'll feel like I'll want in the future. but taking no steps to get to that point.
Right.
And that was highlighted for me on that podcast with Jordan Peterson. I thought it was fascinating. I highly recommend anybody that's searching or anybody to go listen to that. Theo Vaughn this past weekend, Jordan Peterson episode or appearance number 2, because it really spoke to me, and it's creating some change in my life, where it's kind of one of those things where, so if you're looking for, let's say that you're looking for a partner, but you don't necessarily know if you want children or not. I thought, what would the bullet point be? And it could be, find a partner that is, would give you the peace of mind and common ground that were you to want children in the future, you would feel confident doing that with them. Like that could be a goal that, you know, grows into the future.
Absolutely.
It was kind of something that I had a real great heart-to-heart with Michael this week. And he was talking about just doing postmortems on relationships in your life and lives within your life. Like one of the things that Die With Zero talks about is that you die several times, like throughout your lifetime. And, you know, Michael was talking about writing down lists of pros and cons and things that you'd like to recreate in future episodes of your life, and so all of that goal setting and really writing it down and holding yourself accountable to it, and then enjoying the successes and learning from the failures is something that I'm trying to employ right now.
Yeah. So are you looking to begin creating that list? Have you already started creating that list, or?
Yeah, I don't have the master version ready for review. But you know, the awareness phase has certainly been accomplished.
Sure.
I'm currently in the execution phase.
Yeah.
And I think even with all of my so-called success in being able to sit down for at least 10 or 20 minutes most days to meditate, you know, and having X consecutive mindful days under my belt, when I think about, man, the other night I was thinking, tonight I have the opportunity to sit down quietly and not meditate, keep my eyes open and just think. Just think back over the last couple of months, think about what's occurred, you know, where I am in the year. Just think. Think about my situation.
Yeah. Most people are trying to turn off those thoughts, but you're actively sitting there and allowing those thoughts to.
No. I've been actively avoiding sitting there and doing that because I'm like, I should do that tonight.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You took this moment on this particular night.
I didn't.
Oh.
I was not success. I couldn't get myself, because, you know, I got a phone call and then this happened, and I was spending all of my time in quadrant 1, and I didn't go on Do Not Disturb and not worry about what else was going on in the world.
Sure.
And you end up having to schedule time. One of the things that I did in my off time since we last recorded was I took a session. My friend Ashley Tragio, formerly of IBM and ServiceNow and some big brands, has been like chief technical evangelist for some major brands. She's taken a new calling in executive professional business coaching.
Okay.
And I think that she is a natural fit for that. I told her that before I took a session with her. I would highly recommend that anybody looking for business coaching, you know, consult her. We'll try to put something in the show notes. But she did a session with me where she started by, I don't know if this is confidential or if I'm allowed to say this or what, but she clearly defined what business coaching was and what the relationship looked like, and put the onus on me for executing the conversation and coming with goals in hand.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was exposed in certain ways is that, you know, I think so much in terms of like my goals for the company and the product and the future that I don't think about what my role in those goals look like. Like it's all about the toddler, not me as the parent or guardian. I guess if our CEO is the parent, then I'm one of the guardians, fractional guardian. And I'm just so concerned about that child's development and progression. And really, I need to be harvesting my own goals for how I can measure maturity gains and success and efficiency gains in that process.
Yeah. And that can be transferred to any type of thing. Like I can look at myself as a teacher. I can look at my lesson plans and be like, oh, this is great. But am I really looking at myself as far as my delivery and my own person? And then also like my aspirations. Do I want to continue my education and growing myself rather than just the content in my class maybe? Or if we're talking about podcasting, like are we looking at all the bells and whistles that are included in our episodes, or are we looking at ourselves and like bettering ourselves and coming in across more clearly? Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is that like a different offshoot?
Wait, what? Go back.
Well, we're looking. It's less about looking more at the product and more about looking at yourself and making sure that you're growing yourself. And
Yeah. It's yeah, exactly. It's like Russian dolls nestled within one another. In this particular business coaching session, when I'm asked about I felt like I was not able to come up with as many goals per se in certain ways because I'm not in a corporate environment where I'm like, I just want to make this position, or I'm trying to make it to the next tier of management, and I want this base and this raise and X, Y, and Z. With my stuff, it was like, well, I hope that I can be better at helping shepherd this company to a higher ARR amount that has more venture capital funding that makes my stock worth more. You know, like that. And so when we were able to talk about my contributions to things and what my real goals were, she was highly effective, is all I'm saying, in not providing any level of personal opinion, but extracting out of me what I really wanted. And it also contributed to this whole desire for more introspection, awareness for the need for more introspection, and documentation of where I'm at and what my goals are going to be, because I need to be able to look back at my former gaps and the gains that I made and all that hogwash. So
love it. That sounds great.
Maybe we're just growing up. Maybe I'm asking, like, why are you more concerned about money now, Brad?
Yeah.
Well, maybe because I'm growing up, Carson. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm having, in many ways, I am having to grow up. And, you know, my dad was somebody who I looked for guidance quite a bit. And now I feel like I'm kind of taking the reins, and I may not have his guidance. So I'm having to actively look down these different avenues and what I can get my hands in. And yeah, I don't know.
How long has it been?
Well, January 20. So
2 months, 7 days.
Yeah.
2 months and a week.
Mm-hmm.
What's changed, if anything, in your grief process? Have things been added? Have you had time to?
Maybe day by day is getting a little easier, but I still find myself like, you know, we're driving back from Vegas, driving back home. Courtney's taking a nap and we're passing by, and I just have this urge to like call my dad and tell him how the trip went and everything that we got to see. And so I'm still dealing with that. As far as my actions and everything, I guess I'm being a little bit more conscientious of my relationships and maybe a little bit more of what I'm wanting out of life. I've always been the type of person to, you know, give my friends their flowers while they're here. Like, you know, I've never, even before my dad's passing or even before he got sick, you know, I felt like I always did a pretty good job of telling my friends I love them and letting people know that I care about them. So, you know, you hear about people passing and it making people realize that they should say everything that they want to people before they go. And that's not really an area that I've had to grow in, because I feel like I've always made that a purpose of mine. I guess it's really just making me look toward the future, like not just in, okay, I'm about to get married or start a family, but just what does my future look like? Am I going to be teaching for the rest of my life? Whenever I get my master's, does that mean I'm going to take on a principal role or work at the conference or do something to that effect? I don't know, but I am looking down more avenues and I just renewed my gym membership, and want to start getting back into being healthy and stop making as many excuses. Because typically, just like, okay, well, I work out in the summer, I lose a lot of weight, and then I gain it all back during the school year. But like now, it's more of, it can't just really be a trend in my life. Like I really do need to actively eat better, and my I've had grandparents that have had diabetes. My dad was diabetic, and it's like that could be a real reality for me if I don't uh, change that up. And I think about my dad's health, and maybe if he had been eating healthier, is this something he could have beaten? And so in that regard, that has changed my outlook, or at least it's really underlined and bolded some of the things that I should be taking more seriously as I'm getting older.
Yeah, I realize that, as I'm mocking myself for like, oh, am I just growing up, or are we growing up? Like, you've been forced to grow up in many ways. Like,
Well,
my
and
mom
that
said
doesn't
something.
diminish anything.
She said something the other day. She was like, "You're not a real adult until your parents die," and she feels like she became a real adult like at this stage in life. With her parents passing in most recent years, and for you to feel that now is. Have you in those situations where you wanted to reach out and update him on something, or get his feedback or something, have you visualized like a response from him? Or
I've always been pretty good at like I would ask my dad questions and kind of already knowing what he was going to say. I just needed to hear him say it. And so there are definitely moments where like I have questions that I would have asked him, and I can already kind of imagine his response and imagine a back and forth where I'd be arguing with him, and even though I'm knowing that he's right. And so yeah, in some ways I do that. It's not like I hear his voice or anything like that. It's just kind of a knowing of how he would have responded to any of these situations, or how he would be happy for me that I got to go on these trips, or looking at these houses, how proud he would be that I worked on my credit, and that I'm seeing that being beneficial for me like a year and a half, 2 years later after starting that journey. And so I do miss, like, my mom is very proud of me, and I'd say they're neck and neck as far as who I get to hear from, whenever something's going great in my life. And so I do miss him kind of patting me on the back, and just telling me he's proud of me. But I know he would be, so I'm just trying to do him justice, and make him proud in some of my actions, and take some of his guidance more seriously now that he's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you think you talked about him? I know you didn't really intend this, but almost as if it was in the present state. So like, we know where his body is.
Yeah.
We were all there. Where is he? Like, where's that spirit that he thought was between his eyeballs now? Like, is there what
lights out, like
lights out?
But he lives on in me.
Okay.
He lives on in my actions. But as far as what I believe and everything, like I believe it's lights out. I do believe in the second coming. I believe in Jesus returning, and so I believe lights turn back on whenever that happens. But I'm not the type to think the dead look down on us from heaven, or up on us from hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, as far as where he's living, he lives on in me and my actions, and my memories, and telling stories about him.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I always like to check back in with people. Like, so you're pretty standard SDA biblical theology on that. Yeah. And I think that our system is, even when you had to pitch it to people, like it's among the more caring, because your relative is not burning in a perpetual hell. They're not lost in a purgatory middle space. They're not looking down on you from heaven while everything is great and watching you struggle. I think all of that is awesome. It adds up. I've never pictured a literal ever-present burning hell currently.
Same.
It makes sense that the earth would be purged and all of that, but I always like to do a follow-up when like somebody super close to home passes, because I'm like, I'm still a little mystified by that sometimes, and I don't know. That part almost makes you excited for death and to see, well, we're about to find out, like, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, would I love for my dad to see my greatest moments from here on out? Sure. Would I hate for him to see all of my difficult times? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would hate for that too. So, yeah, I will accept that, he doesn't know what's going on right now, but someday he will, and I'll get to tell him all these stories and we'll get to catch up. So,
the other part of the blessing of the way that our denomination has read the scriptures is that it's merciful that he doesn't know. Like, he's resting, like he doesn't have to deal with this bull crap.
Yeah.
Because
no more pain.
January 2021. Oh, it's a new year. We're all going to be good.
Yeah.
Nope.
I believe I'm going to see this dude, and his knees are going to be better, and we're going to be able to play a game of basketball and actually play 21 instead of horse, because we can move around a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like, I look forward to things like that. And, some people with different belief systems, or if you don't believe in the resurrection or, anything like that, that's cool too. It's just something that I choose to believe. It gives me comfort. We talked about kind of our beliefs even before all this craziness went down, and I think I've maintained the same beliefs through the very highs and the very lows of my life.
It's inspiring, whether or not you believe in the biblical narrative or anything like that. It's inspiring to see that your faith that gives you comfort and peace and purpose has stuck through this tough time. It's been, before, during, and after, and it's holding true, and you truly have a North Star. And it's interesting to see your progression, and I'm proud of you. We all love you, and we're still here for you.
Yeah.
If we're a casual friend, or if we're a friend that interacts with you on the phone once a month, what should we be doing right now? Like, should we ask about it every time? Should we let you volunteer it?
There's no wrong way, unless, like, I brought up that one bad one from last episode. But generally, everyone, regardless of what they're doing, if you say you're thinking of me, you've been praying for me, love it. I appreciate that. If you're just calling to say, hey, and you don't even bring up my dad, that's completely fine too. Like, I don't need to be coddled, I'm always going to miss my dad. So, there are worse days than others, but just reach out to me like you normally would. If we don't typically talk, except, once a month, or, once every 6 months or a year, you don't have to reach out to me more than you did before. Still would love to hear from you, whoever wants to, but you don't feel obligated to check in on me. Like, I'm going to be okay. I have a great support system. I have very close friends and family that I can call upon during those difficult times. So you don't need to go, like, it's always appreciated, but I never want anybody to feel obligated. Like, oh, like, this bad thing happened to him, so I need to check in onto him. But if you ever feel moved to do so, that you're never gonna receive a negative response from me. I love hearing from people.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you following up on that.
Yeah.
I know that on the last podcast you were quick to clarify that this is not the the Dean finale episode or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about him for the rest of our lives.
He's a huge part of my everyday life still.
Yeah, we gave you everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So even if I don't verbalize it, I'm constantly thinking of him. And that's just how it is. That's life.
It's one of the most. I was watching this video earlier this week about like different types of lies, like different types of liars, like basic lies, big lies, and pathological lies.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all guilty of, like, really, they say like 6 to 8 basic lies in a single day. Things like, oh, that doesn't make your butt look fat, or oh, I'm doing great. Oh,
Yeah.
fine. And you? Like those little interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other examples of a more complex lie that are to like, well, why isn't she drinking? Oh, well, because it's Lent.
Yeah.
When the real reason was because she's pregnant. But it's a
Yeah.
secret.
Right.
You know, like there's lies like that
Mm-hmm.
you know, to cover up another secret or save face for somebody. And death is such a weird thing because we can lie to you, we can basic lie to you, even sometimes big lie to you
Mm-hmm.
about every other situation to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't look fat, babe.
Yeah.
Or it's not as bad as you think, or
Mm-hmm.
it'll get better, or whatever it is that we're saying. And the thing with death is that it's just an immediate acceptance exercise.
It's finality.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
It's in such stark contrast to the way that we operate the majority of our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, no doubt. And so people ask me if I'm doing well, if I'm good in that moment. Yeah, I am doing great. And I don't view that as a lie. I am compartmentalizing still some of my feelings. And I mean, that's with any sad experience that you've gone through. If you think about it, yeah, that's sad and that sucks. Like, but in my day to day, like going through work and this past week of work after spring break, you know, had a great time with my students. I felt like my lessons went well. Had a great time hanging out with friends and family and my fiance. So yeah, life is good, save for these tragedies. Like it's difficult to explain.
Yeah, you're like, what do you want from me? Like,
yeah,
the good is good, the bad is bad.
right.
Such is life.
Yep.
Que sera, sera.
Yeah. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Let's take some rest on this fine Sabbath. I feel good about this one, dude.
I do too. We crushed it.
You crushed it.
You
Such a
crushed it.
sexy man you are.
I'll take it.
Can't wait to see you up in that gym.
Yeah.
All right, man. Do we know when we'll be back in the future?
Let's say within the next 8 days.
Oh.
Let's say within the next 8 days. So maybe
a week or two?
Maybe Wednesday, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, but
let's plan
talk.
this let's plan this social with our tots. Like,
Yeah.
hey tots, like get a hold of us. Let us know if you're like a confirmed RSVP. What we'll do is maybe we'll send out an email to the email. We've never done that yet.
Yeah.
We'll tweet it out. We can each retweet, Instagram, whatever. But let's come up with a day
Love that
we can all virtually socialize. And then we'll send out a link and also create a calendar invite for anybody that wants one of those to remind them.
Perfect.
That's all right, tots. Cool. Another one of the books. You're welcome. You're welks.
That's right. You've been officially caught up.
Bye-bye.
Bye.